Get started.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Wendy Babjack with the Tinley Park Library, and with me I have Pam Zakowski. She is our Programming and Outreach Manager, and we also have Shannon Leva. She is our new Outreach Services Assistant. So welcome to both of you, and to Phil Persley. He is our presenter tonight, along with different members from the Tinley Park Historical Society. Before Phil begins, I'd like to let you know this program is being recorded. We will have this program on our event calendar where you can click on the link. We will also have it on our Tinley Park YouTube channel, and maybe even the Historical Society's Facebook page as well, just to let you know that. In this program too, tonight, we have a chat feature as well as a Q&A feature. So if you want to enter any comments or questions throughout, please go ahead and do so. Library staff here, we will moderate those questions for Phil best we can, and he will go ahead and answer them throughout the program as well as at the end. Now, I'd like everyone to just sit back and relax as Phil Persley takes us back in time, looking back at more than 165 years of Tinley Park's rich and interesting history. Phil's going to share historical photographs he put together in a video format, and there'll be pauses throughout with Phil giving us a little inside information. So please welcome Tinley Park Historical Society's Phil Persley. Yay.
Hello, as I was duly introduced, I'm Phil Persley, and I've been with the Historical Society for a few years, and they allow me to have fun. So that's one of the benefits of joining or becoming a member of it. So I'm going to take a look back 165 plus years of Tinley Park history, and just a little snippet because there's so much out there. But we're going to start with why Tinley Park exists to begin with. And it's really basically for one reason. It's called the Rock Island Railroad, now the Metro. So here we go. We're going to take off and hopefully,
Oh, the Rock Island line, it's a mighty good road. Oh, the Rock Island line, it's a road to ride. Oh, the Rock Island line, it's a mighty good road. If you want to ride, you got to ride it like you find it. Get your ticket at the station on the Rock Island line. Jesus died to save our sins. Glory to God, we're going to meet him again. Oh, the Rock Island line, it's a mighty good road. Oh, the Rock Island line.
Now, right here, this is Old Tinley Park, where the Rock Island line comes across, or the Metro comes across Oak Park Avenue. This is where our village started. Now, this was in 1851, they started building the railroad. It was called the Chicago, Rock Island and Pacific Railroad. It never quite made it to the Pacific Ocean, but then they start calling it the Rock Island. And as far as we know, we're almost certain that, I shouldn't say certain, but the Underground Railroad ran on both sides of us. So I have a feeling there were a lot of escaped slaves might have followed the Rock Island Railroad. But that's all conjecture because it was a secret society, the Underground Railroad, but we do know on both sides of us there were stations.
It's a road to ride. Oh, the Rock Island line is a mighty good road. If you want to ride, you got to ride it like you find it. Get your ticket at the station on the Rock Island line. There's a A, B, C, double X, Y, Z. Cats in the couple, but they can't see me. On the Rock Island line.
Now, this building, very many of you familiar with, Tien's, is perhaps one of the oldest continuously used for one purpose in all of Cook County. It's always been a saloon. Started in the late 1850s. Supposedly it was a hotel up above and a bar and place to get a sandwich or bite to eat for the railroad workers.
It's a mighty good road. Oh, the Rock Island line is the road to ride. The Rock Island line.
Now, Holstein's is a bar now, and originally it started as a bar, a saloon, back in the 1870s, 1860s, but it wasn't continuously used as a saloon. It had different purposes, and ultimately is now back as a saloon after the Pinto Lounge, which was also saloon used.
And it's a mighty good road. If you want to ride, you got to ride it like you find it. Get your ticket at the station on the Rock Island line. I may be riding, I may.
Now here is the view taken in the 1990s. Here we have Tien's, and across the way, Ed and Joe's. And both these places are very old. Ed and Joe's was originally built in 1892. Then we have this block, brick block of buildings they call Andre's Block. Then here's Holstein's over here, across the Rock Island line. Now the original station, here's Oak Park Avenue. The original Rock Island station was right about here.
Be wrong. Know you're going to miss me when I'm gone. Oh, the Rock Island line is a mighty good road.
Now the water tower is no longer there, but that was originally was not there. It was moved over, was from over here. But originally, first one was built in 1898, which really made a significant change in the village.
Oh, the Rock Island line is the road to ride. Oh, the Rock Island line is a mighty good road. If you want to ride, you got to ride it like you find it. Get your ticket at the station on the Rock Island line. Yes.
Now here is an old village. Many of the old timers remember this because there's Bettenhausen hardware store over here. This is 1983. And the original Doc Cabot's was located right here. Of course, this is Ed Tien's Tavern over here, and across the way is Ed and Joe's.
The ABC double X.
Now we're at 159th and Oak Park Avenue, looking south. And over here, it was to see a Dominic store. It was one of the anchors to Bremen Town Mall. The other side was Gateways.
Ah, crackling rosy, get on board. We gonna ride till there ain't no more to go. Taking it slow. And Lord, don't you know, I'll have me a time with a poor man.
Now this is really significant because the bicentennial was 1976 in Tinley Park. We had a wagon train that went through it. It was almost like people thought it was continuously, people would get on this thing and just continuously drive these horses and wagons across the country. It quite didn't happen that way. They shipped them on trucks. But anyway, it was fun.
Lady hitching on a twilight train. Ain't nothing here that I care to take along. Maybe a song to sing when I want.
Now, Ariel wonders, we were able to get some negatives that I converted to digital format. And we have some wonderful aerial shots at Tinley Park in 1973 Labor Day Parade.
Don't need to say please to no man for a happy tune. Oh, I love my.
Now, some of you recognize the dog over here, Dog and Suds. And we're over here is 167th Street. So we're looking south on Oak Park Avenue.
Rosie child, you got the way to make me happy. You and me, we go in style. Crackling rose, your store-bought woman, but you make me.
Now, I love this picture here because we have photo mat type of thing where you could take your roll of film and have it developed in 2 days, it'd be ready for you. But I love this VW bus here with a bunch of 1973 teenagers sitting on top of it, waiting for the parade to go by. And of course, this is a Nashville food store.
Sing like a guitar humming, so hang on to me, girl, our song keeps running on. Play it now, play it now, play it now, my baby, crackling rose and make me smile. Girl, if it lasts for an hour.
Now, some of you might recognize this. This Mayor Dunn, Jack Dunn, yeah, 1973. Then the next one is a year before.
Well, that's alright, 'cause we got all night to set the world right. Find us a dream that
And I have to stop here because they are here in the virtual audience watching this. This is Ed and Pat Simpson, who is our president, and his right-hand man here, or woman, you want to call it. And they really have made the Tinley Park Historical Society today what it is.
don't ask no questions, yeah. Oh, I love my rosy child. You got the way to make me happy. You and me, we go in style. Crackling rose, your store-bought woman, but you make me sing like a guitar humming. So hang on to me.
You're gonna take a picture, aerial view. That's what better place to climb up on the water tower. I feel sorry for that photographer that did it, but I'm glad he did, because you can see the missing part of Tinley Park is no longer here. Here's our railroad station. We had a feed store over here. We had a cement place, and all this buildings here are no longer here. It's a new apartment building. This is the Tinley Park Historical Society. The old Zion Lutheran landmark chapel, and the apartments building is still here, and this building is gone. It was the boat store at one time.
Girl, our song keeps running on.
Now this building, many of you see it every day if you're in Tinley Park. A lot of you mistake it as a hotel. It never was used as a hotel. It's called the Lewis Vogt Bettenhausen Fulton House, and they're going to supposedly making a brewery out of it. It goes back to 1865 and Brad Bettenhausen's research. And Lewis, if you're IIT, have graduates from IIT, you'll recognize Lewis College. And they were two brothers who had lots of money, didn't know what to do with it, so they built this place so they could have parties out here.
Play it now, play it now, play it now, my baby. Crackling rose and make me smile. Girl, if it lasts for an hour.
Now, this is another street that's long. Well, the street is there, but these buildings are all gone. It's called North Street. Keans is over to the left of this. This was actually a dance hall at one time called the Flats, and used for different things. And now these houses are gone now.
Oh, well, that's all right, 'cause we got all night.
And I always want to ask kids, if you show this, what's this thing? Well, we all know what it is, a telephone booth when Superman changes.
Set the world right. Find us a dream that don't ask no question.
All my bags are packed, I'm ready to go. I'm standing here outside your door. I hate to wake you up to say.
Roller skating in Tinley Park was a big deal. 1955, the first roller rink was built, although roller skating was back even further than that, because Sanger Hall, get into it, had a roller rink. They actually would let people roller skate, and a couple other places.
Goodbye, but the dawn is breaking, it's early morn. Taxi's waiting, he's blowing his horn. Already I'm so lonesome I could cry. So
Now here's one of the iconic figures in Tinley Park. District 146 really grew under his leadership. Took over in 1941 and retired, I think, in 30 years later. but 1973. And Walter Fear hired some really great people as teachers.
Oh, kiss me and smile for me. Tell me that you'll wait for me. Hold me like you'll never let me go.
Now, one of the favorite watering holes in Tinley Park, which is now Holstein's with the Pinto Lounge. If you can look up in here, Al Crum and his Magnolia Rhythm Boys, you can go on YouTube. You can actually hear these same guys sing what they probably songs they sang at the Pinto Lounge way back in 1971 or 72.
I'm leaving on a jet plane. I don't know when I'll be back again. Oh, babe, I hate to go. There's so many times I've let you down. So many times I've played around. I tell you now, they don't mean a thing. Every place I go,
Now, this school goes back to 1850. It was on 171st Street. It stood there until the late 1980s when it literally fell apart. We have its bell at the Tinley Park Historical Society. It was an amazing place. It's probably, the district is still in existence, called Kirby School District, District 140. It's probably one of the oldest school districts in the state of Illinois.
think of you. Every song I sing for you. When I come back, I'll wear your wedding ring. So kiss me and smile for me.
Now, Bill Kostecki is very much around in Tinley Park. He's 94 years old and fantastic shape. And he was our gym teacher in the Tinley Park School. And he went on to teach in high school too. But, amazing man.
I love you like I do. Don't know why I love you. Don't know why I care. I just want your love.
Now, tornadoes in November, totally unusual. Well, we had one. Fortunately, nobody died, but a lot of homes were destroyed.
I wonder why I love you like I do. Is it because I think you love me too? I wonder why I love you like I do.
This was a big deal. Bulldogs, football for young men, and one of the favorite eating spots for all the south suburbs was Jardines, at 159th and Oak Park Avenue. And I believe it's Arroyo's now, if I'm not mistaken, but they started in 1945 and had quite a business, very popular.
I told my friends that we would never part. They often said that you would break my heart. I wonder why they think that we will part. We will part.
Now, this man here, Francis Harper, is a Harper's Hill, some of us refer to. It is still, it was torn down a few years back. It was a very famous house. It was a mansion, servants' quarters, it had everything. Now, Francis Harper was an immigrant from Canada. He was also mayor of Tinley Park from 1911 to 1918. And they had 3 times then, because of the 2-year term, in 1937 to 1941, the 4th time. He was also founded St. George Catholic Church. He was inspired, his inspiration founded it.
Dum 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 be dooby dum 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 be dooby dum 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 dum.
Unfortunately, some fires happened, and the previous one was the church at 159th and Oak Park Avenue, Trinity Lutheran Church. They were just selling it, and they think it might have been an arson, but unfortunately, this really beautiful old church was burned to the ground, nothing left. And then a couple of years before that was Sanger Hall. They were doing restoration. American Legion had bought it, and they were restoring it, and it caught on fire, unfortunately, and burned to the ground.
Dum be dooby dum, wow 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 wow. Dum 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 be dooby dum 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 be dooby dum 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 be dooby dum. Wow 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 wow. Well, lovey darling, come and go with me, come with me.
Now, this place here is the corner. It is occupied now by Citibank. It was a bar. It was a bar since, as far as I know, since the 1930s, or maybe even before. Well, it couldn't have been before because we had a little prohibition. But it's various names. The last time it was a bar, it had Johnny and Joe's, who later moved to 183rd. But then after this picture was taken, it was torn down, and a bank a savings and loan was put, Tinley Park Savings and Loan was put there.
Baby, yonder the sea, I need you, darling, so come go with me. Come into my house.
Now, Mrs. Sandage was an iconic teacher. Her maiden name was Beckler. Miss Beckler, she started teaching in Tinley Park in 1924. She was the civics teacher and also the school librarian in 1959. Now, this picture is the first Tinley Park, well, second Tinley Park Library in 1959, getting setting it up from a newspaper clipping from 1959.
So come go with me. Yes, I need you. Yes, I really need you. Please say you never leave me. Well, say you never. Yes, you really never.
Bill Kostecki, we talked about before teaching lessons at the swimming pool, was a gym teacher at eventually Central Junior High. But 1958, 59 was called Tinley Park School, and he introduced gymnastics. We were probably one of the few schools in the area to have gymnastics.
Never give me a chance.
Come into my town, darling.
He also coached. Here we have baseball.
Never part, I need you, darling. So come go with me.
Now, very few people know Bill Kostecki was in the Navy in World War II, and he worked out in gymnastics. This is a picture, and I think he might have been in the Pacific. Then after World War II, he decided with a couple buddies, to join the Air Force. So he's an amazing man. Yeah, here he is in his Air Force uniform during the Korean conflict. park side was this huge development that started in, they first built it back in started building in 1948. It was planned in 1946. And this is the reason why this school was built, because of this. Now, this man here built the roller rink, and he also built the first bowling alley. He's an interesting character. Another tornado. This is looking from the Rock Island Railroad. We're looking north on the south side. So back in about 1959. Now, Chief Moore, who's our police chief, he is standing here, and there was a big shootout on Route 30. They had something like 200 officers from around the area were called in. Unfortunately, a Korean War vet kind of went off his rocker, and he started shooting at people and cars. Fortunately, it didn't hit anybody, but they called the enforcement out. He was wounded and survived, but there was a lot of gunfire going off. This is our chief, Chief Moore. Now, Chief Moore was not all about guns. He helped little kids out and doing training type of thing, and also participate in a municipal building. Here's Chief Moore, our fire chief, Harold Ed Moss, Shelby Hirsch, Walter Fierk, our superintendent, and I think this M. Baumgartner might have been one of the planners of this building. Now, baseball was big in Tinley Park. Now, I'm looking through this picture. I saw a newspaper, and I'm looking at, I see there's a Judy Gray on the Little League team. What is a girl doing on Little League? Because girls were not supposed to be on Little League, unfortunately. Well, it turns out she loved baseball so much, she was willing to play on the scrimmages or practice play, even though she couldn't play officially in a game. And she, by all accounts, she was one terrific ball player. Now, if you're a certain age in Tinley Park, you were subjected to this. The Goretto twins were great businessmen, and they got all the kids in the different private schools, St. George and Trinity School, and also Tinley Park School, probably even Kirby School, to rent one of their accordions, and they would give you lessons. So I think our president of our school board, our president of our historical society, still has his accordion. Now, this is Jardines. 159th and Oak Park Avenue. Of course, we couldn't mention Tinley Park without Tony Bettenhausen. We'll find out some interesting things about him in a little shortly. Now, one of the people in Tinley Park in the late 1940s, 1950s was Natalie Johnson. She started a kindergarten preschool for kids on a house she and her husband and family restored. It was actually one of the boat houses. And she had they used to call it the farm school, Orchard Hill School. And she was quite a businesswoman. We did not have a kindergarten other than, I think one of the Lutheran churches might have had a kindergarten in Tinley Park. We actually had one in 1931, but we'll get into that. It unfortunately didn't have enough money to keep it going in the public schools. Now, amazing woman, Mayor Rose Brown. She was the first and only woman mayor of Tinley Park and one of the first, if not the first, woman mayor of Cook County. Now, if you look at this, you see the girls coming out over here. This is the Tinley Park School. And the boys are over here. They had this in 1949. So this building had just been added to this part over here. The Walter Fair, the town was really growing and we were getting a lot of kids. So you got to put them somewhere. Class pictures, always class pictures. Actually, most of these pictures there's actually two double class pictures for each class. There was a lot of students. These are 8th graders. Now, some of you are familiar with Ken Fulton. Here's, I believe this is Ken Fulton up here. He ended up becoming a Dr. Fulton, and he's retired now. I think he has a business on the side somewhere. You cannot, if you were a certain age in Tinley Park, WS is overwhelming. If people claimed they could pick it up under fillings, but I don't quite understand it, but I did pick it up on our speakers. I can remember coming through, even though you wouldn't have the radio on, you could pick up WS. It was a very strong signal from right outside of Tinley Park Tower.
You must remember.
And we had homecomings, although this is not high school. This is a town homecoming. Started in 1942. All the local towns were having homecomings. Okina, Frankfort. Tinley Park started having a homecoming, and they would elect a homecoming queen. This picture is from right after World War II.
But this, a kiss is still a kiss.
You can see this is TM, and of course here a reenactment of the famous Marine taking the mountain.
A sigh is just a sigh. The fundamental things apply
More
as time
1946.
goes by.
Now, this is a class reunion of a different sort. This is March 30th, 1946, and Charlie Hovito, right up here, in 1943, told many of the Tinley Park veteran people in the Army, Air Force, and Armed Forces in World War II that he would have a celebration at the end of the war. Didn't know whenever it happened. It would be at Sanger Hall that he ran, and the drinks were on the house and the food was on the house. Now, if you look at it closely, the ones that showed up on that day, there are two women here. Here we have a WAC and we have a woman Marine right here. Now, the men on the bottom here were from Blue Island, and they were American Legion March team. So they end up, the reason in 1943, they were there in 1943 for parade that celebrated this, the list of all, and they would add to this, whoever was in one of the armed forces during World War II, their name would be added to this. And the whole thing was eventually filled up.
And when two lovers woo, they still say.
This picture I like because here's that Louis Bettenhausen, etc., Fulton House, and back in 1946, and here it is in 2016, and same building. And it's always fun to look back at these things to do a comparison.
I love you, on that you can rely. No matter what the future brings as time goes by. Moonlight and love songs are never out of date. Hearts full of passion, jealousy, and hate. Woman needs man, and man must have his mate that.
Now the at memorial for the World War II people serving was located about right here, and this is a picture from 1940. So the railroad depot is right here. Now this is, you can see, this is a grain elevator where they were actually in the from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. They used to show movies on the side of it. And this is North Street. Of course, this is Tien's. This was Parenti's, the father-in-law of Mr. Tien. And across this way was Ed and Joe's, but back in 1940, it would have been Funk's Tavern.
No one can deny.
Now, we were really intrigued because we always heard about Bachelor Grove, dance hall, roller rink, and we knew where it was. And it's right beside Carlson Springs parking lot. It was right just south of Carlson Springs parking lot. And it stood there probably maybe 20 years. And like I said, it was a dance hall. We actually able to get some pictures. Never had any pictures.
It's still the same old story, a fight for love and glory.
And here, this one is at 143rd and Oak Park Avenue location. So the men only at the bar. Well, Earl Leader was the owner. This actually turns out to be called the Dice Girl, and she was like the waitress. The reason they called her the Dice Girl because she rolled the ice when they would people would bet on who's going to pay for the drinks. Of course, we got a Navy guy. He's got his two ladies on each side. So much for men only at the bar.
a case of do or die.
This is the dice girl to Melvin Leader, who was one of the last people from the area to die in World War II. He died March of 1945 in the occupation taking of Germany.
The world will always welcome lovers as time goes by. Moonlight and love songs are never out of date. Hearts full of passion, jealousy, and hate. Woman needs man, and man must have its.
Sanger Hall, this was an interesting photo because it was taken by somebody from Germany. And as far as I can tell, he had developed in Germany. And because the German names on the photo, and it's actually company still in existence. And so he sent it back to perhaps his relatives in Tinley Park. The Sanger Hall.
That no one can deny. It's still
Now,
the same old.
here we have a musical group of ladies. It's the Tinley Park Kitchen Band. And of course, they, I guess they were pretty successful. I'd like to find out more about them. If anybody knows, please tell us.
Story, a fight for love and glory, a case of do or die. The world will always welcome lovers as time goes by.
This is Mrs. Sandwich, much younger Mrs. Sandwich, a rather attractive looking lady.
Shades of night are creeping, willow trees are weeping, old folks and they.
These are all the one-room schoolhouses around Tinley Park. Keep an eye on Kirby School. This is right over here. We saw it before.
Babies are asleep.
Now, here's some people in Kirby School in 1927, 28. Notice this guy named Melvin Tony Bettenhausen. Now, Mrs. Roush, who's an aunt of one of our longtime members, Tinley Park, her sister in 1924 got TB, and she was forced to quit. Tuberculosis was a very serious disease, and a lady took over by the name of Helen, who became Mrs. Sandwich. And then in 1924, Mrs. Sandwich was hired by District 146, which is now a significant part of our history.
Silver stars are gleaming, all alone I'm scheming, scheming to get you out here, my dear.
Okay, greatest event in the history of Tinley Park. They paved Oak Park Avenue. Amazing. It was I don't even think they even had gravel on it for a while. It was sort of when it rained, a big mud thing. So they had a party. They put concrete on it on a Saturday night in 1923. They partied all night long. They had a big band from Chicago. They had a boxing arena where they had boxing matches. The bank was open all night, so people get money and spend it. And the pop or soft drink establishments were open. Except, this was the time when we had, there was prohibition, supposed to be no alcohol. Well, I think the constable probably looked the other way when it happened. But anyway, people had a good time. And of course, they had to get up and the next morning go to church. But whether they made it or not, another story. And of course, when you pave a street, what's the first thing you're going to do? See how fast you can go. They started having problems already. Pony betting houses, one of the first ones arrested. And when they had a new speed trap in back in 1938, this is a little bit later. And the judge told him if he caught him again, he was going to throw him in jail. So I guess that's when he decided to race, go fast on racetracks.
To the window, by the window, that is where I'll be. Come tiptoe through the tulips with me. Tiptoe from your pillow to the shadow of a willow tree, and tiptoe through the tulips with me.
Now, what we have just an airplane on there, tri-motor airplane, tri-winged airplane, and it was built in Tinley Park with the idea they were going to make some money on the war effort, World War I. And the problem was this picture of it is right where Panduit is right now, in the open field. They by testing it, it didn't quite make it off the ground. It crashed. So in it our place in history for making airplanes, but that place eventually becomes the American mushroom factory where this was manufactured.
With me.
Now, 1918, in November, when World War I ended, many people were dying of the flu pandemic. Much like today, except it was even faster. From September 8th to December 31, over 10,000 people died in this area, including in Tinley Park. Things came to a halt, screeching halt. People were asked to wear masks and be careful. They didn't have laws against spitting. People were very much afraid because it was extremely serious, like today's pandemic. One of our former mayors died of it too, and then Holstein too, that had taken over the Holstein from his father. Saloon died of it. Now, this one I couldn't stop in here because Wild Orgy Follows Tinley Park Victory. This is eye-catching headlines from 1913. I think the newspaper probably would word this differently today. But in February 1913, there was a big movement or temperance movement. It was in the Kirby School. They had a meeting. A bunch of Tinley Park youths came in and broke it up with shelled corn and shotgun pellets. They were thrown on the floor. The meeting was broke up. The building almost burnt down because they had a lantern show, slide lantern show going, and it was tipped over. And luckily they got the fire out before the school burned down. But the youths were brought into custody, and the attorney for the youths was this guy, Francis Harper, the mayor. And I have a feeling his son might have been involved in it too. But this is, sometimes it was called the Benton House or Kirby School. Henry Vogt celebrates 40 years of being in business. He throws a party. Over 2,000 people show up. This is a town of only a couple hundred people in 1912, and he has all his people that he sold. He had the store, both store. So he just throws a party. Of course, there's free beer and free food, but what better way of getting people to come in? And they had a singing society who gave a concert. We just had a band. Now, note here, I have it on the background, the Tinley Park Public Library. This is circa 1912, 1913. And over here in the window of this building is, by the way, is still here. It's a restaurant, I believe. There's, looks like a container here, a barrel. Well, it turns out this is probably one of the few pictures we have of the next picture. A washing machine, a diamond spiral washing machine was made in Tinley Park in a factory. And that factory is the same one that tried to make that tri-wing airplane, and eventually became part of the American mushroom steak sauce factory system. Now, before the library, they had a barber shop and, of course, the bath. This is, you can get your bath, your once-a-week bath. And these are people that didn't have indoor plumbing or wells. And so the farmers would come in, get their shave, get all freshened up for Sunday. Now, this picture here is the town hall. We have a reproduction in the Tinley Park Historical Society. In back of that is the Methodist Church. And you can see a little bit closer. Methodist Church is actually still here, though it's disguised. The Methodist Church, this building, is part of the new Methodist Church building. You can see over here, here's the Methodist. It blocked off the road, 173rd place, couldn't go through. So they moved the church over, and eventually they built the new church back in 1939 or 40 around it. And you can actually see the old church if you go in the back of the new church, Methodist church. Now this is Tams. It's turn of the century called Tinley Park Hotel. Here's the edge of Tams. This is looking north on what at the time would have been called Bachelor Grove Road. And you can see it's not paved. The park had a windmill, grist mill, and for grinding flour. It only lasted about 20 years. Eventually, it was torn down in 1912. And it was right down the street from Irby School, right off of Oak Park Avenue. Samuel Tinley was an immigrant. He immigrated with his wife and 3 sons in 1848 at age 40 years old. He bought a farm in Frankfurt area. He was by trade a baker. I don't think he was much of a farmer. So when the job came open, become a station master for the new open stop at Bachelor Grove, Oak Park Avenue, and the Rock Island Railroad. He took it.
Slumber, my darling, thy mother is near, guarding thy dreams from all terror and fear. Sunlight has passed and the twilight has gone. Slumber, my darling, the night's coming on. Sweet visions attend thy sleep, fondest, dearest to me.
Thank you very much.